the reason why I go out and working outside is because of all the other things that I learn. I learn about the nature of the material I'm using, the nature of the place, the nature of the whole the whole environment. And this has been a way of pulling together not only and the kind of understanding of the rock, but feelings towards the Cumbrian landscape, the walls, and I've worked as a stone waller on farms, and as much as I love stone walls, and I know how to build stone walls, I like to do a kind of alternative. I want an arch that looks as if it's almost about to collapse, this sense of collapse. But to do that, it has to be very near to collapsing, of course, you know. So it's something you have to deal with. I've never made one this big, and that's interesting because in the past I've been able to manipulate them when they start collapsing and grabbing hold of them, and it is very frightening. I've not had that feeling working underneath there. It's very intimidating, obviously, because if they do fall, it's serious. I think I'm becoming more aware, more conscious of the traditions of involvement with the landscape, especially when you're making something that uses walling techniques. And I don't sort of distinguish between the art historical context and the farm labourers' use and moulding of the land. Yeah, these works, I'm very aware that I'm picking up on a process and working that's been done for many hundreds of years, and I'm very pleased about that. That's all right. That's all right. The things that I've made at Grizedale, I've enjoyed that because I've been able to see a work travel through the seasons, which I've not had the privilege of doing before in most of my work because they've gone. It's the biggest, I think it's the biggest work in Grizedale, yet you could walk past it quite easily within 15 yards. And there was as well the association with church architecture, where you go into churches in this brown, subdued, quiet light and the stillness, where the architecture again leads you right from the ground upwards. All my work, everything I do is a starting point as well as a kind of statement of how things have been up to then. Oh, it opened a lot of other responses. It produced the next work, which was the bendy piece. After to find it looking for straight trees, all I could see were bent trees. You know? So I decided to make something out of bent trees, especially because the foresters can't use them, and that's important. That all the materials I use are ones that aren't of high value to the forester. I must fit into the ecology of the wood. I couldn't go around cutting trees in one of the broadleaf woods. And it is part of the nature of Grizedale forest that trees are cropped and grown and cropped, and that is within that nature and cycle that I made this work. It went together a bit like a jigsaw, really. It felt like it had been exploded over the forest, and all I had to do is to find the bits and get it back together. And there's an awful lot of the right log for the right place, because I think originally when I was going to do it, I thought I'd be able to use a lot of the tension in the trees themselves. They didn't work like that. There wasn't enough give, and especially with these thick ones. You know, they had to be actually grown in that way. And this kind of thing, working close to the ground with my hands, almost playing with stuff, seriously, is the source of the larger things. They start small. I always tend to build things a little bit bigger than I ought to. You know, a lot bigger than I should, really. And I usually surprise myself. One of the reasons this come about is because of Grizedale. With working in the forests and the stone walls that run through the forest, and the tight knitting of the walls. And they kind of form that sort of tight form that's echoed in the pine cones. I once made one out of ice on Hampstead Heath, and that was cracking. And I got very anxious about that, but it wasn't cracking because of it falling apart, it was actually freezing together, and it was very strong. And you think how much weight there is on here. And you look at this base, I think it's surprising that it is holding. I didn't really intend for it to get this big. I think it got out of hand, which is great. There's a sort of intensity and the excitement when you realise that you're working that close to it falling down. That's great. You know that you're working at the very edge of it, and you're extending yourself. You're extending your own understanding of it, and if it holds, you know that it's going to be fantastic, and that is beautiful. But if I'd made it a squatter thing, it wouldn't have had that edge to it. Yeah, I work all year round. I'm outside every day, but that is a necessary part of understanding a place. It's also a necessary source of ideas and work. You know, you're just about getting to winter, and then spring appears, and you're getting into spring, and then summer appears, and each day the weather's changing all the time. And you're trying to keep up with this because the weather is so important to whatever you make. That's as much a part of the materials as the materials themselves, as what I make in the weather. It's the unnecessary, all that